Through two games, what am I most impressed with, surprised by, and concerned with regarding the Buffalo Bills? I'm breaking that down for you today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. Very excited for today's conversation, a conversation that I'm not alone for. I'm joined by Bruce Nolan, the outstanding host of the Bruce exclusive podcast. And Bruce and I are going to kind of have a little checkpoint. The Bills have only played 2 games, but there's a weird amount of time between Thursday and Monday. So I had a little extra time, an extra show that I could fit in. And so I invited Bruce to come on today's episode, and him and I are going to discuss what we're impressed with from this team, what we're surprised with from this team, and what we're concerned about from this team so far, based on what we've learned through 2 games. Bruce, welcome in.
Joe, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's nice to know that when you found an opening in your calendar, you were like, Bruce, let's talk. Makes me feel good. Let's do it.
Well, you and I haven't had a chance for you to be on Locked On Bills since your new podcast feed has hit. You in transition last time that you were on. So the Bruce exclusive is fully back, its own feed. So you guys can find the Bruce exclusive wherever you listen to this podcast on the audio platforms, and make sure that you're tuning into Bruce each and every Thursday. And it's been really cool to have you back in the podcast feed. So I know that this is definitely delayed, but welcome back.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It has been a kind of a neat reentry because I got just enough time off to kind of recharge, but also there's this new semblance of independence because you have your own feed and that's pretty cool. And you get to see your own analytics, and that's pretty cool. And it's been awesome. I've been really welcomed back in a pretty meaningful way by the community, and people have responded, and I have been able to kind of keep the core of what the Bruce exclusive is. And that is kind of a different methodology by going about, looking at Buffalo Bills and football in general, and kind of able to still be true to kind of who I am. So I've been really enjoying it.
Well, I've been enjoying listening, and I'm excited for you to be here today to kind of get some of your early thoughts on this 2024 Buffalo Bills team that sits at 2-0, a win over the Arizona Cardinals, a win over the Miami Dolphins. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. But let's have this conversation. We'll start with what you're most impressed with. We'll talk offense and defense, but Bruce, as you consider this team, what you've seen for 2 weeks, offensively, what stands out to you in terms of what you're most impressed with?
The thing I'm most impressed with offensively is the efficiency combined with the variance. So one of the things that we've historically talked about with the Buffalo Bills is we've always talked about things like play action rate. We've talked about neutral pass rate. We've talked about when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, you should be throwing the ball. We've said many, many times, you've said on this podcast, I've said on my podcast, the best thing that the Bills do is throw the ball to wide receivers. This has been true over and over and over and over and over again. And now all of a sudden it's like, the offensive efficiency is really good, and I'm not sure that's the best thing they do anymore. And that right there is what's impressive to me. The Buffalo Bills offense last year had an expected points added of 0.10, right? It was third and best in the league. Really, really good, efficient offense. This year, I will say, caveat, 2-game, small sample size, 0.21, which is just absurd kind of stuff. Passing the ball, they're more efficient than they've even been in their peak. Like 2020, peak Josh Allen throwing the ball to wide receivers and explosive plays down the field. Still, the Buffalo Bills EPA per pass this year is 0.37, which is just absurd. Last year, it was 0.12. Now, the variation, the fact that you're this much better while doing something qualitatively that you haven't been known for is impressive. We talked about yak over and over and over again for the Buffalo Bills. Last year, 5.2 yak per reception, not great. This year, 6.9 yak per reception, very solid. In addition, the amount of EPA that they're gaining from their yak was at negative 0.35 last year. It's at positive 0.25 this year. Josh Allen's completion percentage is currently at a career high. His yards per attempt is at a year high, but his ADOT, his average distance of target, is at a career low. What you're seeing is all the things we've been complaining about for years with Josh Allen, how the offensive system needs to help him more. He needs to get more help from his receivers. He needs to get more help from the scheme. All of a sudden, he's getting it, but it didn't come in the way that we thought it would. The play action rate's still really low. So we're going, he's getting this help from the system. They're performing at a high level, but qualitatively, it's not the way we thought it was going to be. And so that, to me, is really impressive. I mean, just leave out the fact that they're running on early downs all the time, which is historically a no-no. And they're not even running into, like, light boxes. James Cook gets 30% of his carries against 8-man boxes, which is actually fairly high. And they're doing it on early downs, which is not historically a good thing. And yet somehow it's successful. They have a 40% success rate on early down rushes and a 35% first down rate on early rushes, which is just bonkers. So to me, it's the fact that they're more efficient than they've been while doing what we always thought was left-handed work. That's the thing. That's the most impressive thing for me about the Buffalo Bills offense.
Yeah, the vision for this offense that has been set forth by, I'm guessing, Sean McDermott, Joe Brady, and Josh Allen maybe flies in the face of some of the ideas I've certainly had, but it seems to be working to this point. So I think that's a great way to start this conversation. And what's interesting is I didn't give you any instructions. I mean, you could go as micro or as macro as you want to. And I like how you kind of you baked a lot into that talking point. My answer here is a little bit more specific. For me, what I'm most impressed with from this Bills offense to this point is the offensive tackles. I think Dion Dawkins and Spencer Brown have been playing at such a high level. Dawkins is just getting better with age, and it's year 3 with him with Aaron Cromer. You could tell that influence has been pretty steady, and he's playing such good football. And I mean, in some ways, this continues to reinvent himself as a player. The way that he's lining up his splits right now, literally lining up, I mean, even with the center, that's unheard of for a tackle. Tackles want depth, man. They want that space. They want to be able to have an advantage getting into their kick step. Dion says, no, I don't want any error in this play. I want my hands on you immediately, and I trust my ability to slide and frame and stay in front of you. And he's doing it at a high level, not to mention, of course, the run blocking that's always been a strength of Dion Dawkins. Spencer Brown, obviously the big extension, he's playing at a high level as well, really shutting down all the rushers he's faced. The run game influence has been there. I think they're actually pulling Brown more than they are Dawkins so far early this season. And so you got an expensive pair of tackles, but they are playing at an extremely high level. And so that's, for me, where I would say I'm most impressed with the offense to this point. Defensively, Bruce, what has impressed you the most about the Bills' defense through 2 games?
It's got to be Von Miller. I listen, one of the things I talked about a lot going into this season was that there were a lot of ifs on the pass rush. If Gregory Rousseau continues the trajectory that we thought we were seeing from him before he got a little banged up last year, if Von Miller at the age of 35 decides to come back and be a meaningful part, if this, if that, okay, then if all these things happen, then I can feel good about the Bills pass rush. And I'll be daggone. They all happened.
Right. Unbelievable.
Gregory Rousseau did take the next step. Von Miller did come back. And the usage of Von Miller is so smart by the Buffalo Bills. They're just like, listen, he's 35 years old. Let's let him do the thing that he's historically been good at. He's not playing a massive amount of snaps, but his pass rush win rate is spectacular right now. And so when I watch Von Miller, I think to myself, wow, you can come in and be an impact player. And one of the things that they consistently mentioned when they signed him was they wanted a closer. That was the word they used all the time, the closer, the closer. They want someone who is fresh, who is dynamic in the fourth quarter when you say, okay, listen, the defense has to make a stop, which has historically, that phrase has generated a little PTSD in Buffalo Bills fans, right? Josh Allen leaves the field with a lead. Just hang on for one more drive, right?
Yeah.
And so far, Von Miller has been that kind of player. And I think that it's less surprising about Gregory Rousseau. It's more surprising about Von Miller. It's the most surprising that both of them happened to now the point where I'm just going to cross my fingers and go, just stay healthy because I like what I see.
I'm with you here. I have Von Miller written down as what I'm most impressed with. I had no clue what to expect from him. I was not optimistic, to be honest with you, at age 35 coming off of the ACL and what we saw last year. But he's playing good ball, and it's not fluky. He's literally showcasing good pass rush variety. His get-off looks good. His ability to corner and turn and bend looks good. There's been some good run defense reps, even though he's not had to play a ton of run defense. There's variety with how he's beating blocks. I am just over the moon pleased with Von Miller to this point, and very comfortably to me what I'm most impressed with when it comes to this Bills defense. All right, folks, coming up on the other side of it, Bruce and I are going to talk about what we're most surprised with, both offensively and defensively. So be sure to stick with us. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality candidates that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, I know you want to get to some of these Bills games. Sabres games are heating up, Bison's games. Well, the best way to get tickets is through Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome, easy to navigate. They give you a seat view. You could choose to turn on the all-in pricing, but I really love that they specialize in last-minute ticket specials. You never know if you can go in 3 months to a concert or in 2 months for a comedy event, or if you're going to be able to go to that Monday night football game against the 49ers coming out of the bye. Well, the good thing about Gametime is they specialize in last-minute tickets, so you can make that decision right up until the day of the event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. All right, Bruce Nolan, we're now going to talk about what we are most surprised with, both offensively and defensively. We'll start with the offensive side of the football. And on the offense, I kind of want to build upon some of the stuff you talked about in the opening segment in terms of what you're most impressed with on the offense. And for me, what I'm most surprised with, and it feels weird saying Josh Allen, but that's my answer. It's not that I've never expected Josh Allen to play at a high level. It's how he's doing it, and all of the stuff that you talked about in that opening segment. It's not necessarily the recipe that I had written down for, okay, this is going to unlock the next level of Josh Allen. But what I really appreciate with watching him to this point has been the maturity that he's playing with. I think he's seeing the field well. I think he's reading coverage in terms of where his eyes should be. It's at an all-time high, in my opinion. I love the decision-making. And I've said this a few times, decision-making doesn't just mean whether or not you're putting the ball into harm's way for, interceptable passes. I'm talking about when you're working your progression and what you say yes to and what you say no to. I'm really satisfied with it. I thought he did a good job against the Cardinals of staying patient, but also sprinkling in that special Josh Allen stuff that makes him really dynamic. But against Miami, embracing that style of play for that moment in that game. We've seen Josh Allen. I feel like there's been times early in the season in recent years where I felt like Josh Allen was on a mission to win the NFL MVP and he didn't play good ball. and he wasn't playing mature quarterback. But I am seeing the most mature version of Josh Allen that I've seen to this point, and some of the ingredients that have gotten us to this point really stands out to me. So it's weird to say Josh Allen is what impressed me most, but I think the context and how it's happening really, really speaks volumes to me. And for me, that's my answer as to what I'm most surprised with the offense. Bruce, what's your answer?
Well, now I'm going to have to pivot on the fly, which is something you know that I love doing so much. Under surprised, it says Josh Allen's adoption of the offensive philosophy on my notes is what I was going to say. So I'm just going to go ahead and say ditto, but I'm also going to say this. I think that one of the things that Josh Allen's starting to figure out is that the difference between players like Jared Goff and the players like Josh Allen is actually closer to being like 6 to 8 plays a game than it is to being 25 plays a game.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that makes Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and players like that, that's the thing that makes them worth more money, is because those plays in a small sample size game where 6 to 8 plays can change the entire course of the entire game. Those 6 to 8 plays, those are the ones where you go, well, daggone, we had everything correct as a defense. We had them perfectly. And then Josh Allen just went and did Josh Allen things. Nobody says Jared Goff just went and did Jared Goff things in a positive way. When they say that, they usually mean through a late pick. That's usually what they mean. And so his adoption, his ability to say, listen, I can be Jared Goff 80% of the game or 70% of the game, and that's fine. And then eventually I'm going to drop back to pass and everything's going to go disastrous, right? My right guard's going to get messy and it's going to miss somebody and there's a blitz that's not going to get picked up. And I'm going to go, okay, here we go. Time to put on the cape. And he puts on the cape and then he breaks the back of your defense when you totally thought you had them because you threw rock, they threw paper, and you went, jinx, I got Josh Allen. And it doesn't matter that you have paper. And so those are those special plays, but he doesn't have to do those 40 times a game. He doesn't even have to do them 20 times a game. He just has to do it like 6 times a game or 4 times a game or 7 times a game or whatever it is. And that is mature quarterbacking. That's what you were talking about. Mature quarterbacking is recognizing that this can be boring for like 65, 70% of the game. And that's fine. And then occasionally something's going to break down and I'm going to go, okay, it's time. Take off the glasses, put on the cape, go be Superman. And I think that is the type of thing that Kansas City figured out before Buffalo did.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. I think we're starting to figure it out. And if you look at the neutral pass rate notions, which historically have correlated with really good offense, right? The top offenses were at the top and the lesser offenses were that's not true anymore. The offenses at the top of the neutral pass rates, the Browns, right? The Raiders, the Bears. I mean, those are the people at the top. And at the bottom, you have the Saints, which is like an unbelievably potent offense, dropping 45 points a game so far. The 49ers, who everyone's really, obviously happy with. And then right there in the middle, you have the Chiefs and the Bills. And so you think to yourself, okay, maybe, and everybody's favorite offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, below the Bills, obviously, because he historically has been with the Detroit Lions. That's the thing that surprised me the most, is how incredibly seamless the transition has been to what I would consider to be 80% Jared Goff, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I love the way that you put that, especially on the heels of Jared Goff and his performance against Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. it was tough to watch. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of you watching these young quarterbacks right now, and you can feel the uphill climb that they have to figure this out, whether it's Caleb Williams or Will Levis. There's a lot for these young guys to figure out. And it's nice to feel like the Bills are kind of getting there. Now we need to see it sustained, but it is a beautiful thing. Shifting gears to the defensive side of the football and what we're most surprised with. There's such low-hanging fruit here. I'm going to have to take it. It's the back 7 depth.
Yeah.
It's Baylon Spector and Cam Lewis and Jamarcus Ingram and the meaningful impact that they've made despite having very little reps in their careers. Like, I think Ingram and Spector maybe have played like less than 50 snaps on defense entering this season. Cam Lewis, I think 150 snaps in the slot scattered across 5 years. It's crazy, man, that these guys are able to step in and not not only not be liabilities, but make meaningful impacts and make you feel really good about the depth and the system that's in place. And so it's low-hanging fruit, but if you had the Bills defense having the success that it did with those guys factoring into the equation as much as they have, I mean, I don't tell you that'd be an aggressive opinion, but it's working out so far. I don't know how long it's going to for, but it's working, and I'm very surprised by it.
I am surprised by how many different ways the Buffalo Bills can just run cover 2.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I look at the film, I'm like, it's cover 2, but it's a different 2 deep and it's a different 4 under. And, I think that the Buffalo Bills' ability to run cover 3, Tampa 2, and pure cover 2 and have those rotations look as smooth as they do and be able to fill with numerous different players is just, it's really impressive. And so I wanted to say the safeties is what I wanted to say, right?
Yeah.
And then I started watching today. I was watching the film and I was watching the safeties and said, I am surprised at how many different ways the Buffalo Bills have managed to run basically 4 different coverages and have it look really nice. Like it's aesthetically pleasing. Like you watch it on film and you think this is a good looking coverage rotation. Like this is a really good looking disguise. It's a really good looking a lot of things. And so for me, that's my biggest surprise. And I didn't know what I was expecting because this is a pretty common thing with the Buffalo Bills, but you have a bunch of new people back there. I guess I just wasn't expecting it to go that smoothly, and I should. At this point, if there's one thing that we should trust Sean McDermott with, it's defensive backs. He might be one of the best defensive backs coaches in the last 20 years. And we should probably just shrug and go, yeah, he's going to take some, a future insurance salesman and make them a completely passable starting safety in the NFL.
Bruce, I said it all off season long that I'm not going to allow myself to be concerned about safeties. And then you know what I allowed myself to do? I allowed myself to be concerned about safeties. You know what I mean? Like even I fell for it. I talked about it like my big offseason plan. I'm not sweating this. It's not a big deal. Sean McDermott has this resume. And then here we are at the season. I'm like, man, Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin. I think all these explosive passing offenses are going to kill the Bills. And needed to be reminded of my own talking point that I felt like I was beating the drum for all off season long. But yeah, that's a too high safety look 75% of the time against Miami. Too high middle of the field open coverage. That's the 4th highest percentage in a game for the Bills since 2018. So it's definitely what's going on right now. And it's certainly helping these guys, I think, perform. And yeah, some of the disguise elements of that is really impressive. I remember last year watching the tape and Taron Johnson, they would sometimes buzz him back as a half field safety, coming from the slot. And so they've just kind of expanded on a lot of those ideas, and we'll see what else Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott have up their sleeves the rest of the way. All right, folks, on the other side of it, we will discuss what we're concerned most about moving forward on both sides of the ball, so be sure to stick with us. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, got a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All that you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Bruce, this has been a fun conversation to this point, but now we got to get into some of the concerns that we have offensively and defensively. Let's start with the offense. Bruce, your top concern based on what you've seen and projecting things moving forward.
I still am keeping my eye on the Buffalo Bills' ability to separate from man coverage. I think that one of the things that you realize when you realize that football is cyclical is that we might be having a similar conversation soon to what we did when Allen was a rookie, which is, okay, are people going to start running more cover 1? Are they going to start running more cover 0 and saying, listen, we just don't think that your receivers can separate before the pressure gets there. And Josh Allen has historically not been great against the blitz relative. Now this year he's been spectacular against the blitz because there's been answers built in. But if you can guess the answer as a defense and somebody just has to win, and okay, can they win enough, right? Can they win with enough significance of rate? If the defense says, okay, Keon Coleman is going to maybe he'll moss a guy, but he's going to moss a guy every time? Probably not. So are we willing to just take that? Are we willing to just take that chance? And so I know that historically you see teams run a lot more zone. Every offense faces more zone than man. I mean, it's just the way it works. But if you think about the cyclical nature of the way offenses are played and the way defenses play offenses in the NFL, you start to wonder if you're going to see people just say, listen, I just don't think your guys can beat us consistently enough. Yeah, you might occasionally, but if we are comfortable with, cover one and using a spy, then I don't know if you guys can win. And that might be something that I'm going to keep my eye on because it's still early. Right? We've seen a new look for the Buffalo Bills offense this year. I think it's pretty fair to say this is a new look offense. Well, that means you're going to start seeing new counters than what you've seen. And I think that might be one of the counters that we see. I'm interested to see what the counterpunch from the Buffalo Bills would be.
You mentioned Josh Allen and his success with the blitz this year, right? I think that's not always been a strength of his, but it has been this year. I wonder how much of it is tied to the Bills are just running 5-man protections. Like literally they had one of their 20 dropbacks last week that was not a 5-man protection. And I think it was maybe 4 or 5 different snaps in week 1, like very little in terms of we're keeping chippers, we're keeping, tight ends and backs in the block. And so there's no wondering, Josh, you're dealing with the free runners and you've got 100% of your eligibles in routes every single snap. Maybe that's working, because that's definitely different.
Find a dude. There will be a guy. Find him.
Right. And there's only 5 blocking. So you better figure it out. So it's working to this point, but that was Joe Brady at LSU. And it's a different ball game, right? It's LSU. I think they had the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line, but you're seeing that show up now in this offense, and it's been interesting. My biggest concern for the Bills' offense to this point has been the interior offensive line. Not that it's been bad, but I feel like I had a lot of expectation for O'Cyrus Torrence in year 2, especially because I felt like he hit a wall as a rookie and kind of down the stretch didn't play his best football, and I feel like that's kind of parlayed a bit into this season. Now, I will say that I don't think that he's taking L's. I think it's more communication and timing stuff, which is explainable because there's a new center in Connor McGovern, and Connor McGovern now has new players on both sides of him. And David Edwards, obviously a new starter, but I think O'Cyrus Torrence is a player that I'm looking for more out of moving forward. They want to run some zone stuff. Of course, they're predominantly a gap run scheme, but some of the timing in zone, and then I think the miscues in pass pro have come from him, in particular with not handling loopers and stunts and different pressure looks. And sometimes they're threatening overloads and he's blocking down and there's a free runner next to him. And I just feel like he's got to get shored up a little bit. Now the whole middle 3, I think can be better, but it's probably O'Cyrus Torrence is the guy to this point where I feel like my expectations haven't quite met for him in year 2. So I'm looking for the interior offensive line and in particular O'Cyrus Torrence to kind of ramp things up here moving forward. Defensively, Bruce, your top concern moving forward.
The injuries are piling up. I think that Sean McDermott's ability to construct a back 7 out of duct tape and baling wire has been well established. And I think that that's awesome. Until you run into, Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. And I think Dorian Williams is somebody I'm consistently keeping my eye on because I want to see instincts. I want to see him be able to play well in coverage. I want to be able to see him not bite on the play actions as hard, not get moved by misdirection as much, because that the shifting and the motion, all that stuff is coming. And thankfully, the Bills jumped out to such a significant lead on the Miami Dolphins that we really didn't get a chance to isolate that with Dorian Williams. And so it's something I'm keeping an eye on moving forward. But ultimately, the injuries that are forcing backups on the field, it's great. And you can schematically cover for them as well as you possibly can. But ultimately, if you think that really good offensive coordinators are not going to target those linebackers, then you probably haven't been watching the NFL recently. Linebacker is becoming a shockingly important position for a lot of these reasons. For a long time, I think people thought off-ball linebacker was a little bit like running back. in the sense that, you just plug anybody in there and maybe don't pay up for it. I think that that's starting to change in the NFL, especially as the rushing is starting to change and running EPA is starting to close in on pass EPA and things are starting to become a little bit more balanced. I think that that's something I'm keeping an eye on because the injuries are piling up and it's forcing backups on the field, and they're backups for a reason. Although they might be good backups, they're still backups for a reason. And I need them to be able to hold up against better offenses.
I've got a similar answer. It's how much more attrition can the unit take? And I just find myself wondering what's next. Who's the next key defensive player that's going to go down? I've just kind of been conditioned to feel that way based on how the last several years have went. And so it's like, okay, these guys, Taron seems like he's avoided IR, and, Terrel Bernard, it could have been worse, probably going to miss a month, and maybe Matt Milano comes back in December. But it's like, if that's it, okay, but I don't know if that's it. There's still another game to be played and more injuries that could happen. And as you start to work through the depth, I think one of the benefits to this depth has been the time that they've had, not necessarily playing, but in the scheme. This is Cam Lewis's 6th season. Like, people are forgetting he came into the league in 2019. Jamarcus Ingram, it's year 3. Baylon Spector, it's year 3. Now you're kind of getting to the point, though, where the next guys, they're not, right? It's going to be newer players that don't have that time on task. Now, maybe they have more upside, but if it gets a little bit deeper down the depth chart, I think you're losing experience. And so hopefully we don't have to find that out. But my concern is you're banged up already. It's week 2. How much more attrition can the unit take? And let's hope we don't have to find that out. All right, Bruce Nolan, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Everybody make sure that you're following Bruce on X at Bruce Exclusive, the Bruce Exclusive podcast in your feeds every Thursday. It's a priority for me every Thursday, and it should be for you as well. Bruce, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
All right, folks, appreciate you being here. And as always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and look forward to catching up with you again real soon.